Welcome to Northwest, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I am Diana Kohler. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm today's worship associate. It is a pleasure to welcome the newly ordained Pastor Joshua Berg to our virtual pulpit this morning. Our music will be performed live by the Northwest Singers, directed by Ken Hermanat. Alex Myers is running the AV booth in addition to playing the piano this morning. And because the COVID risk in Oakland County is currently at a low levels, congregants in the sanctuary can sing while they are masked. We hope that you will sing with us very loudly from home. Please greet your neighbors with a wave before we start our service. We'll start with those on Zoom. Here in the sanctuary, we've put our Zoom view to gallery so we can see you waving to us. And at each other. Now those in the sanctuary can turn to that camera and wave to those attending virtually. And then finally, if you haven't greeted each other in the sanctuary with a wave, do that. Good morning, all. It is good to be together. Kaufman. If not the eye was like the sun, It could not see the sun's majestic shine. If not God's magic was in everyone, who could rejoice o'er anything divine? Dorothea Kaufman's response is, from the bottom of my very existence, I am pervaded with light energy, shining colors in my eye, warmth to my skin, inspiration to my soul. In this unity of creative sparks and sparkling creation, life unfolds. Let us open our senses to the light within and around us and send it out with shining examples into the world. Northwest shares 50% of the plate collections with the Southfield Emergency Needs Fund every other month during the year, and July is one of those months. The fund helps Southfield residents overcome personal hurdles to achieve a satisfying and productive quality of life. You can give by texting to 248-574-8034 with your amount plus the word plate. You can donate online at our website, Give to Plate Collection 50% split, or if you're here in person, you can put checks and cash in the collection basket in the front of the sanctuary. Our first hymn this morning is 1012, When I Am Frightened. Please rise in body or in spirit. Our reading this morning is a recipe for resilience. This recipe has been tweaked over time, so adjust as necessary. Sometimes it yields more servings than anticipated. Sometimes it needs a little bit more of this ingredient or that. So here it is, a recipe for resilience. 1 part courage, 2 parts tears of failure and doubt, 1 part deep listening, 1 part each of both silence and laughter, a dash of trust, a pinch of wonder, a heaping scoop of naps and snacks. In a separate bowl, mix together families, friends, those who challenge you to be your best self, and those with whom you disagree. Add slowly to the larger pot, adding a bay leaf for, well, whatever it is that bay leaves do, and let simmer for as long as you need, which is often longer than you realize or anticipate. Keep the heat at an even temperature, hot enough to cook throughout, but not so hot that it burns the bottom. Can be served at room temperature, warm or even cold if necessary. Serve alongside your favorite soft blanket, cat, dog, or other soft item. Make often. Share with others. Hold on to the leftovers. You'll need them after a long day that challenges your soul. And our next hymn is Just as Long as I Have Breath, number 6 in Singing the Living Tradition.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just, I'm echoing a little. I can hear myself. I don't know if that can be corrected. If not, I'll just deal with it. I'm trying to, there we go. You know what? I'm messing with things. It's enough. Good morning. My name is Pastor Joshua Berg. That's still a little surreal to hear, but I'm getting used to it. And I'm delighted to be here this morning. Again, after a wonderful week last week. And I'm going to expand a little bit what I talked about in my benediction last week. I have re-examined Reinhold Niebuhr's Serenity Prayer. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the first section, accepting the serenity to accept the things we cannot change this morning. But I want to start with a little centering. I read an article inspired, I read an article called Starting Over Again, and it was by Taylor Plimpton. And this meditation, this centering at the beginning of the sermon, and I'll do it again in the middle, is inspired by that article. So as I mentioned in the ordination, we begin again on any given day. We begin again in any given moment. And ideally, we begin again in joy. So I'd like to focus on a single moment. Right now, I'd like to focus on just a single breath. So breathe in and out as you will, and as you can, as you are able. And as you breathe in and out, focus on that space between the end of one breath and the beginning of the next breath, in order to rest in this moment and let it expand. This still point, this moment in between breaths that we pause in, this is the true present. This is the great, the sweet, the beautiful, the wonderful darkness out of which everything is born and to which everything returns, this moment in between breaths. So linger in the space between breaths as you breathe in and out. Linger in the space between breaths, the birth of life itself happening right then. Stay there in the stillness as an embryo would be swathed in the womb of its parent, perfectly content, about to confront the most amazing journey imaginable. Breathe in again to feel the energy of the potential of that next journey in joy into the unknown. And here we go in joy. My oldest daughter, she just completed her senior year in high school, as many of you know. So over last New Year's break, my family and I, we visited some colleges to which she had applied. And as we toured these campuses, as we walked these very impressive campuses, I noticed something about my daughter. I noticed something about her countenance that I realized I hadn't seen since I can't remember when. And I don't know what to call this thing that I noticed on her face. Wonder, maybe. You know, some might say she was having a religious experience. And for me, as a humanist UU, if there was, let's say, a Google Translate that translated from sacred words, religious experience, and I put thank you, I'm getting a glass of water. If there was a Google Translate that translated from sacred words, the words religious experience, I would put that in there, and I would translate it into humanist, and it might be something like an ultimately positive and a transformative experience of sometimes inexplicable and often unexpected awe, maybe active or passive, which can be, but is not necessarily effectuated by the person experienced. You know what? Humanists are a little bit too wordy. So let's stick with the sacred side, I think. Let me be a little bit more concise. If I had to pick a word for this religious experience my daughter was having, a short phrase, I say she was just extraordinarily moved. It's that simple. And whatever it was, though, I had not seen this expression in a while. In fact, I would bet many young adults and children have had fewer sparks of this magic energy recently, given the stress and the strain of these times. And that is also why her reaction to being on these campuses was so surprising to me. It was so very wonderful for me. It transcended the zeitgeist of this current moment. Now, another person might not have noticed, or then maybe they would have noticed, and maybe they would have absorbed it and smiled and said, oh, great, and moved on. But I'm a minister now, so of course, everything is a sermon. And thus here we are. So I thought long and hard about my daughter's state of being on those campuses, and I realized a few things. This was happiness. This was joy, but it wasn't born of delusion. What I mean by that is knowing my daughter, knowing her, I know she wasn't forgetting or she wasn't ignoring the tribulations of the world. COVID was still present as we all wore masks and walked an almost empty campus, normally populated by thousands. There was solar-powered trash and recycling receptacles peppered the area as a constant reminder of environmental struggles. Remnants of flyers remained attached to walls and kiosks, calling for action on any number of issues, especially on the UC Berkeley campus. None of the anxiety-producing, mood-diminishing things in the greater society had gone away. They hadn't disappeared. And my daughter still had her senior year of high school to complete at the time. The prospect of applications and scholarships and getting along with roommates and learning to navigate a dizzyingly large campus, moving away from home, hours of studying that comes with college life, everything else that there was to anticipate with trepidation about this journey was still very present. She was holding it all on her shoulders. Although I think she anticipated moving away from home more with elation, but nevertheless, I know she'll miss her mom and her sisters. Plus, on these campuses, my daughter's hands got cold. She told me her feet hurt as she walked around these campuses, struggling to decode those frustrating campus map apps. So this countenance of wonder, this extraordinary movement, this joy she was feeling was not some altered state of mind or some out-of-body experience where everything troubling just disappeared. It was a moment. It was many moments of euphoria with complete acceptance of life's challenges. Indeed, I would say a determination to accept and confront them while choosing to focus on the knowledge that there would definitely also be plenty of good stuff. For those who were at the ordination, she was mindful of the butterflies. This particular state of being, it also resulted from a new beginning. It resulted from this new beginning. I remember feeling something similar the first time I stepped onto Manhattan to start a new chapter of my life many years ago when I used to be an actor. In becoming a college student, my daughter is starting over in a manner. She's rebooting. And when you reboot, what happens? Any computer science people out there? Your cache is cleared. Unnecessary and even troublesome remnants of past experiences are deleted. The experiences themselves stay in the memory, but the system is freed of any residue holding back functionality, and you move ahead with renewed energy and positivity. Although my kid is not a computer, even though as much time as kids spend in front of them these days, I wouldn't be surprised if some melding had occurred. She's not a computer. And the positivity in that moment was at least in part generated from just the anticipation of a reboot, though. The anticipation of a new start. What is the first thing we do when the TV's on the fritz? We unplug and replug. All of a sudden, things come back into focus. She restarted when we went to those campuses so she could better confront the challenges, the things beyond her control, and a future containing surprises she could not possibly anticipate or know. More importantly, this reset back to default facilitated and catalyzed an awareness of something we all absolutely do know, but often forget or ignore. It's what I said before. There will be, along with the challenges, many wonderful things ahead. To use an overused but appropriate aphorism, when I saw my daughter's face that day, I thought, oh, if only I could have bottled that excitement, bottled that energy she had in the midst of life as we know it, forever presenting us with trials as well as victories. She achieved in that moment the serenity to accept that the things she cannot change or know, allowing her to welcome in the elation of the moment and the potential of the next moment in order to go out in joy. If only I could have bottled that. I began to then consider how we might recreate this. I considered it in the benediction I gave at the ordination ceremony. Today, I'd like to explore deeper how we can have our own religious experiences, how we can more specifically go out in joy, what steps to take, how we can accept and confront the bad head on, but retain more focus on the good, as my daughter did. And consider whether that state is limited to certain extraordinary and rare experiences like visiting college for the first time or an ordination. And consider whether those experiences that are infrequent and that are many are not. Wait a minute, I read that line long. Consider whether the state is limited to certain extraordinary and rare experiences that are infrequent and that many are not fortunate enough to ever know. Many of us won't know those exact same experiences. So to begin confronting this challenge, I'd like to continue our breathing meditation before I complete the end of the sermon. Hopefully this ritual will provide us with some nascent insights as we go forward. So again, inspired by Taylor Plimpton's article, in one moment, I'd like to begin breathing again slowly, and this time counting our breaths. 1 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath, and so on up to 5, and then back again to 1. If you don't get there because you lose count, or because you realize that you've been thinking about pancakes for a few moments, or that the minister interrupts you, just start the counting over again. The point of this isn't about getting to 5. If you somehow manage to make it there, you're just going to go back to 1 anyway. What the practice is really about is simply going back to 1, noticing yourself drifting off into one dream or the next, smiling compassionately at your ridiculously busy mind and all its madness, and then returning yourself gently to your breath, to your body, to your posture, and to number 1. This is an exercise in letting go and beginning again, and not just on special occasions, but on any given day, in any given moment. So here we go. 5, 1 on the in-breath, 2 on the out-breath. Okay, we've centered again. Returning to the sermon, I'd like to approach the process of going out in joy by proposing a consideration of renewal, this reset that I talked about, on a more micro level. The meditation we just did, like I said, came from this article called Starting Over Again by Taylor Plimpton. And in it, he writes, reality is created and destroyed around 70,000 times a second. The Higgs boson, or the God particle as it's known, which is considered the building block of the universe, it lasts only a millionth of a millionth of a millionth of a millionth of a second, taking tiny, ferociously fast loops into and out of existence, so that the universe is continuously being reborn. Everything changes, everything passes, yes, but this also means that life is in a near constant state of refreshing itself, and in so doing, suggesting that we can do the same. Yes, we are offered beginning after beginning, the moment at hand, forever a truly clean slate to do with as we please. However, I will say living in constant restart mode isn't a state of serenity. There are implications in that where we were was somehow bad and only where we're going is good, which is not true. And that's a harmful thought in and of itself. So as we did in the meditation, by resting in the transitional space in between breaths, I prefer to consider this state of elation a transitional space as well. This moment of joy, transitional space, simply moving from one moment to the next with anticipation and no judgment on either. In fact, in reality, this origin point is our constant state of existence. As I mentioned, I also realize we are not all starting college next year or anything that would normally be considered exciting for that matter. And there are countless people in the world that are actively suffering far from even the vicinity of the privilege of things like higher education opportunities. So when Taylor Plimpton writes that we start with a clean slate every moment, I would add caveats that the clean slates don't exist on a level playing field in this world. Also, people are in very different and often challenging mental, physical, or emotional places. So I'm not proposing the ability to find this elusive, wondrous feeling of joy I've described, the serenity to be accepting in every single moment. I'm not proposing that that's even achievable. It isn't. However, I am going to be a bit presumptuous and guess that the audience I'm speaking to today has certain privileges and opportunities, whether it's due to social location or just the fact that we are living in this country as opposed to Ukraine or North Korea, for instance. I'm going to point out that one of our privileges is the ability to belong to a beloved community like Northwest, whose mission is to support and validate each other, even though we don't always get that right. So the suggestion I will make is this, is that when we are confronted with a moment of angst or two or many, to refocus ourselves on our blessings, whatever they are, and the ability that focus provides to begin anew in the next moment. Most importantly, rest in that space in between moments to recharge and to reboot as much as you can. Turn the computer off and on again. As Taylor Plimpton puts it in the conclusion of the article, to be focused on getting back to one is to miss the point that one is right here. In conclusion, I have a sort of Unitarian Universalist version of a religious prediction for you today. Rather than some dire or apocalyptic warning, it is this: my prayer, my wish is not only for the serenity to accept the things we cannot change and the things we cannot know, but also the serenity that comes from resting, indeed truly living in each moment, knowing that did you all see it? Knowing that the beginning is here. The beginning is near. And with that, sorry, it's a little awkward online. With that, I will move into joy in the next moment. I will reset. Take accounting of the blessings that I have today being here with you, and move in joy into hymn number 86 together. Blessed Spirit of my life. Please stand in heart and spirit as you are able.
With a vision
May the spirit of the whole of life, to which every part and particle is equally related, inspire with the grace that welcomes transformative experiences of wonder and awe, moments of euphoria and fortitude resting between breaths, and complete acceptance of life's challenges, the things that cannot be changed, and that which cannot even be known, with recognition that fairness is illusory. May these experiences of awe teach the welcoming of the precious gift of life, opening our hearts to the elation of each moment and the anticipation of the next. May peace of mind and heart be found more than enough to enjoy, be grateful for, and fully live into each moment.